Alright, hey Misfits, welcome to episode 2 of Misfit Hour. I'm Mitch, your host. Today we've got a special guest, Jason.
Yep, here we are. I thought I broke out there for a second.
And then below me is Terrence, and then we got David over there, all the way down the corner.
Yep.
Used to corners.
Don't ever put baby in the corner.
No. So, my first question is, what's the one thing that drives you insane when a model gets to you? First thing. And when you take it, like when you take it out of the box and you see that there's just one something off about it, what's that one? What's that one thing?
The fact that model makers are actually making stuff now that I used to have to custom make, so that drives me up the wall right out the gate. A lot of people start to nitpick stuff, but I don't know, man. Anything really drives me up the wall. I think the only thing that really gets me sometimes is when stuff gets broken, but it's quality control issues through shipping and stuff. But I give a lot of these manufacturers leeway because I grew up in the age of blue box when it was Canon and Company and Detail Parts and Detail Associates, and so I guess I don't get hemmed up. And a lot of people get upset nowadays. I don't really get upset about it unless something's like broken. It doesn't really bother me too much. That's just me.
Right. Yeah. What bugs me is when glue doesn't hold. Like, they build these things in a factory, they come overseas, they get bounced around in a container on a container ship all overseas, perfectly fine, and then when they get to you at the door, there's just parts laying in the box, and you're like, what? I mean, it's easy to fix. Don't get me wrong. I'm still gonna gripe about it.
It's still frustrating.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think you got to kind of wonder if obviously that stuff's glued in the factory setting, and then when it's shipped, the temperature variances throughout the shipping process could probably have a pretty significant bearing on that. So just an idea. I don't know if that's the case or not, but
Yeah.
I know from when, just on the scale trains aspect of it, from watching um their video introduction story kind of thing, their very first shipment of them boxcars, their very first product, when they shipped them over, because I didn't know this, that you can't ship wooden pallets internationally because bugs and stuff can bore into the wood, so it has to be either plastic or cardboard. Well, the the manufacturing side there in China put it on a cardboard pallet. Well, sitting in the bottom of the ship, the container was in the bottom of the ship, sitting in the bottom of the ship for a week, 2 weeks on this cardboard pallet. The pallet disintegrated, and of course, all the box cars got damaged, the boxes were damaged, all kind of stuff. So I think a lot of it is probably the shipping companies, not the actual manufacturer, whoever it is, Athearn, Scale Trains, Broadway Limited, whoever. It's I think it's in the shipping itself, because it's like once it leaves the warehouse until it gets to, or once it leaves the manufacturing plant, and once it gets to the warehouse, it's handled by every Tom, Dick, and Harry that don't even care. They just grab it up, snatch it up, and throw it onto the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess only when it gets to the States, I guess, is it put on a pallet. Because I guess it gets off the container ship, thrown onto I think a 40-foot, or no, it's thrown into a warehouse, put on a pallet, then put on a truck, to then get delivered to, let's say, Scale Trains or Broadway Limited.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I just speaking of Scale Trains, or Terrence, do you have anything to add to this? I'm sure you've got
Nah,
a
not really.
bunch.
I mean, I pretty much covered all of it in the last episode. Like I said, I don't really have a problem with manufacturers. You know, I can understand that things happen in shipping. Um, I've had, as a loyal Scale Trains customer, I've had many things arrive. The prime example, my Dash 9, it showed up missing a spare knuckle holder. It wasn't missing, it just had become detached. And my guess was probably just improper handling. But people are quick to blame the manufacturer, but you can't do that because you have to blame the carriers in that situation. If somebody's mishandling a package, I mean, we see it, UPS, FedEx guy just chucking packages around, not caring. You can't really be mad at the manufacturer for that.
No,
That's a shipping issue.
and you know the other thing too, and I mean, people forget that we are well past the age of blue box, of bulletproof blue box stuff. I mean, this stuff is coming fragile. I mean, the stuff that
Hmm.
they're putting on cars, locomotives and all that stuff today. Yeah, I mean, even 10 years ago, you would never dream of that kind of stuff being available right out of the box. So, you know,
No, I mean, yeah,
I mean, the lesser of two evils, a little bit of fix up when it arrives, or you get an old blue box that has divots where the grab irons go and you have to drill everything. So, I mean, it's catch 22. So,
so segueing into Scale Trains and their new design here. Who is a fan of their new design and who isn't a fan of their new design?
I like the new one. I like the fact that they've gone away from the .com aspect of it versus the where it goes to and looking taking it on to more where it says scale trains as opposed to the scaletrains.com.
You see that.
Right. I mean, I like this just because it shows what the cars are in kind of big detail and you can see everything. But this is what this is what their third or fourth run of these.
Third run.
So I mean, you should know what the tenders look like. You've seen them on UP with 844, 3985, and now 4014. I mean, people should know what these tenders look like by now, I would think. I mean,
Yeah.
the one thing they did differently, though, is this is the old one. That's how big it was back then. That's how big the label was. The label now is pretty much the whole side.
Yeah. I like the label on that better.
And then also, it's on the other side. So I do agree. I am a fan of them just doing the scale trains versus the .com because that's what really people are after. However, when you search up on eBay HO scale trains, you get everything because it's everything. You have to kind of put the .com in there in order to search for it.
Yeah. It that does it for on eBay searches. It does make it a little bit frustrating, but the I like because it's like Shane said at the meet and greet that it's makes it seem like they're a website as opposed to, I mean, it seems more of a website than opposed to a model railroad manufacturer.
Hmm. Yeah. And did we have Tim on the call or did he get off?
So he's there. It's showing
No,
he's
I'm
there.
I'm here. I'm just busy putting away dishes. I thought we were starting at one Central, not one East Coast. My bad.
Oh, well.
I don't listen to direction well. Sorry.
I don't either. No,
Rebel
so
you.
yeah, so I mean, it's just different manufacturers do different things. I appreciate having high detailed quality stuff that you used to get, like let's say from an old Sunset model.
Or
Now you get from Broadway, you get the same engine, only without paying, well, I would say without paying brass prices, except for the fact that
here's a
Broadway is
blast from the
releasing
past.
Broadway's releasing these
Oh,
again.
oh, oh, River Rossi.
So Broadway's
Where's the label?
releasing
I think that where's the label at?
what are they doing?
I
They're
don't even know where the
releasing
label. Oh,
610
there's
again. So
little
Broadway's
blast from the
releasing.
past.
Oh yeah, that's an
You know,
old Rossi.
a lot of people downplay River Rossi. They don't know, but I tell you, man, for what they offered when they were at their peak, obviously, AHM River Rossi days. I mean, their Y6s, their Berks. I mean, they were detailed. I mean, they still are
Yes.
comparatively detailed, even when you put them up against some of the stuff today. I mean, it's now their him up is the fact that they're light. Like something like the Berkshires that I have here. Well, I say me, my dad. I mean, sometimes I don't even think they, want a mildly steep grade, they pull their own tender because they are super light. But I mean, they're good running engines. They always
I
have
had a
been.
River
I've
Rossi Big
these
Boy, and that was just it wouldn't pull anything.
Yeah,
this
it's
is
bad.
this is the one from 2006, I think it was. I've got too much backlight on me.
Yeah, you don't. All I see is a shadow.
Shit. Hold on. Let me try and rearrange the light here. I knew I should have. There's one way to do it. There.
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
That's in come DCC ready. Actually, I ended up getting it with a decoder in it. I didn't know it, but it's brand new old stock. It if it's been run, it ain't been run much, and it's got some weight to it. It's pretty heavy,
Hmm.
but like you said, Jason, the old original ones, the River Rossi AHMs, yeah, they wouldn't pull much. They
Yeah,
barely pull their own tender. But this one's, I think I've got good feelings about this. I think it might actually pull this train, but we'll see.
Let's
Yeah,
hope.
yeah.
I hope it
Hey,
does. I hope it does better than the Athearn Genesis did.
if it doesn't, just put that STP-40 on there. I'm sure it'll pull it.
Yeah,
So Broadway is coming out with these again. The Texas and Pacific 610s, the 210-4s.
Huh.
This is a sunset model. So what I don't understand is why they have a price increase to $900 or $800 for this engine. DCC and
Yeah.
sound that you're gonna have to rip out. Let's be real.
yeah, you're right. You're gonna because you're paying almost $1,000 for a locomotive with shoddy electronics that, depending on how much you run it. Now, if you're running it a lot, it's not the electronics are going to last long. But now, if you're not running it a lot, it'd be a shelf queen for most of it might last a while. But for the most part, you're going to have to rip the electronics out and add at least another $100 to that
Hmm.
for a decoder and speakers, and then your time to do it.
Yeah, so you're looking at, and obviously I would assume you'd probably use scale sound system speakers.
I would.
I mean, I think, is it they or is it just a guy?
It's just JT Burke that does it.
Hmm.
Pre uh, he pre-prints them or 3D prints the enclosures. He does make some universal ones,
Hmm.
but he makes tons that are manufacturer locomotive specific.
Yeah, I know. They was working on, I think, getting some for the DD840 for the new Genesis ones. Um, this one doesn't have it, but I think he was planning on mounting them somewhere back here. I think one back here. I think another one up here. I think so it could differentiate the sound, but I don't know.
I haven't seen anything that he's done lately, but also haven't looked either way in a while too. So
Yeah, I know. I've been using his speakers, or requested to use his speakers on a lot of stuff recently that I've been getting with sound decoders. Shout out to Jake's Trains over there on YouTube. He does he's doing a bunch of decoder installs for me.
Yeah, those are pretty good things. I do like their speakers.
Hmm. Obviously, everything sounds good with aftermarket speakers. But what are some locomotives that sound good right out of the bat, like right out of the gate? No questions asked, no nothing that you need to do anything to. Has there been one?
It depends what you're looking for, and it depends on what you're modeling. Because I can say that, granted, I've had a hard time finding another one, but I have an old P2K Jeep 30 that was originally in UP livery, and it came with the QSI decoder, which had the Doppler feature in it. So that was a joy to play with, and it sounds good. All the sounds sound great out of the box, but unfortunately, we know the situation with QSI. You can't just go pick those up anymore.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
I've
they now
also,
say
with my
Paragon
ESU
or
stuff,
something.
yeah, with my ESU stuff, like the scale train stuff, that's been good. But then with the tsunami's been pretty consistent. MTH, out of the couple MTH units I've had, I was not a big fan of the I can't remember what it was that they came with. It was
Proto
either, what
Sound
was it?
3.
Proto Sound. I don't know about Proto Sound 3. I definitely was not a fan of one or two. Definitely not a fan. And I'll say this, and the only reason I will say this is because I've heard this come from a couple of different people. I can't attest to it myself because my DCC system is an NC power cab. It's just your basic entry level DCC system. It's nothing fancy. Um, but I've heard people say that if you use the MTH DCC system, that the Proto Sound sounds much better if you're using their controller. I don't know. Never had one of my units hooked up to one. But what I do know is that using my NC Power Cab, the loop points in the audio were very, very notable, and I didn't like that at all. There was not any smoothness in the idle or any of the throttle notches of the locomotive. Everything was just so, the looping was so audible, it became repetitive. It took away from the experience. But outside of that, I mean, I haven't had any gripes about sound. And I'm a firm believer that if I don't like something, I'll change it. I'll find a way. There's nothing wrong with making something the way you want it to be. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it to start, but if you want to make it unique, go for it.
Mm-hmm. As we see Jason over there working on tiny detail parts with big fingers.
That's the thing, man. This I will detail all day long.
And the worst part about it, Mitch, is I don't even think you've seen his those Tygons that he's been working on.
Mm.
Those are pretty nifty.
Well, while I'm sitting at work, I'll just flip the phone while y'all are talking here. Where are they? Where are they? They're here. They're
I
buried.
think I've
Oh, here.
seen them. I think
Yeah.
I saw them somewhere. You posted them on a group or something.
Yeah. So,
Or the
Evan.
Onion Pacific, or no, TTX, I think is what they were.
No, NS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, all out of Walther's Psycho Pulpwood cars. So, I could probably make 150, 200 of these things right now and sell them. People hit me up. I wish I had a way to mass produce them. Evan's running trains.
Hey, Evan.
Wish I had a way to mass produce them because I'd sell every one of them. But right now, it's all by hand.
So what's the donor car?
The donor car are these. I've been acquiring. So they're just the Walther's Seco Pulpwood cars, which Walters have not done a run of in a long time.
Okay.
So it's just I don't know how much truth there is to it because you hear so much stuff on the interwebs, but I was told that the reason Walters hasn't done another run is because the molds are they got destroyed or worn out or something along those lines, which is why they have not done another run of those. or the highly sought after pulpwood cars that everybody pays $70, $80, $90 for. Everybody but this guy, because I'm not I'm not going to spend that kind of money on those cars. But apparently that's the dealio on those. So, but
Yeah.
you hear so much stuff on in social media land, it's hard to make out what's real and what's not anymore sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. So
yeah.
I do have a question for everybody. And this is just, a broad question. When you take your model somewhere, let's say to go run at a club, are you going to pack just the freight cars in carrying cases and the locomotives in their separate boxes, or are you putting everything in a carrying case so you don't have to worry about opening multiple boxes?
I
Ooh.
have both. I have both. The hard plastic fold top um, bins, like the old postal bins, like the ones that fold an inner clamshell, the top. I've got like a ton of them, and I've got two that are pretty deep. And most of my stuff still has its original box. It goes in its original box in the tote, and off we
Mhm.
go. So when I get to the club, which I don't go often because of that, I'm opening boxes, and I have boxes stacked up from here to Kingdom Come to put stuff in.
Yeah.
But because I don't have a layout at home right now, all my stuff it sits in their boxes, and I'll just pull it out when I need it or going to do something with it. Just makes for easier storage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it-
Nothing
For
leaves.
me, it's a. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, bud.
For me, it's a mixture of the two. I like David. I don't have a full blown layout at home yet. It's in my future plans, but we're not there yet. Uh, for me, all the locomotives, if they have their original boxes, or even if I have a spare old blue box that they'll fit in, that I can put newspaper and stuff in, obviously I'm gonna try to put it in a box just for added protection, because as we all know, this is not a cheap hobby. So I'm not trying to spend $200 on a unit and then one lazy transportation decision later I've broken something. I don't want that, especially with what I have sitting in front of me right now, which is this little thing. Ain't nothing special. It's just the SDL 39. I
Oh,
finally
okay.
got
Yeah.
around to
Museum
looking
model.
at it. Yeah, I finally got around to looking at it. It's not a bad looking unit, but to
Nothing
answer the
special.
question at
Museum
hand,
quality.
yeah, but to answer the question at hand, if it's on my like workbench, it depends on what it is and how big it is. If it's like a small, like I have a little Jeep 59, that little Jeep 59 project that I started, God knows how long ago. It still hasn't gotten finished, much like everything else. Um, that I'll transport it loose out of the box, but I can actually remove the shell and put it in like a plastic bag. But I haven't dull coated that unit, because I still got the sill stripes to add with decaling, so I don't want to manhandle it too much and put my fingerprints on it and take my weathering powders off. So I guess it kind of just depends on what it is and what stage it's in, whether it's in the workbench stage or its final finished product, and in which case it's going to stay in the box if it's being transported.
Yeah. I just carry everything in the original boxes because I don't have like a way to transport. I mean, I do, but I don't. I mean, so when I worked in automotive, or when I was going to school for automotive, they were getting rid of these like giant plastic cases with foam in them, and I'm like, that's perfect to carry a train in because there's so much foam protection. So I got one, and I can carry about eh, without engines, I can carry about probably 40 cars in it, laying on their side, but it's pretty well protected. I mean, I've only had maybe a ladder break off or two, and that's nothing a little bit of glue can't fix.
I think a fair thing about it, though, this I just thought about this. I just realized it because I'm looking at because I took these three with me because I knew I was going to have to do this video. So I brought the museum unit. Obviously, I brought my SDP and I brought an F45. But everything else is at home. But I'm looking at these boxes and just these 3 units. I could see how I know how much space they take up. Just 3 boxes, and so I can see why people kind of go with the carry case thing with
Mhm.
finer dividers and stuff like that to kind of make it easier to transport it all. But
Thing is,
the original box is probably going to be your best protection, but it's protection versus space and punctuality. So I guess that's kind of the balance of the scales. You got to figure out which one you want to risk more and which one you want to put up with more potentially.
yeah. I mean, this is for an SD40.
Yeah.
Well, that's
That's a
like
long
this river.
box
All
for
right.
an SD40.
Okay. This will show you comparison. This is the '90s River Rossi version for a Challenger.
Mhm.
It's not nothing. It's big, but it's also holding a big locomotive.
And all it had inside of it was hard foam.
Hard styrofoam. That was it.
Hmm. And not one part broke off.
This is the box for 844.
Hmm.
It's huge, and in most of it inside, that's the inside of it.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's like you could cut out half of that.
Well, what I think is ridiculous.
Oh, MTH's boxes. Holy crap.
It's like, why? Why do we need a box this long? I mean, okay, I understand, big articulated engine attached to the tender all the time with by screws. I understand, but it's only like this long.
So it's actually interesting because this is the museum quality box, and then obviously this is the museum quality unit. You can see the size difference between. But I mean, I'm not mad. I think it's honestly, like I said, I'm a fucking nerd, dude. Pardon my French. I look at everything from a analogy perspective and physics perspective. I think it's probably like just crumple zones in modern day cars. If you drop the box, it's probably extra room just to give the energy room to go about so that this doesn't get broken and smashed into pieces. It's
Any more
probably
than it,
why they use the larger boxes.
yeah, any more than it already was.
Yeah, any more than it already was. By the way, I saw what you guys were talking about the about that rear platform on this thing. How if you look close enough, it just ever so slightly curves down. I seen that when I unboxed it.
So you got so apparently it's a piece of styrene. Hi, Tim.
Good morning.
It's a piece of styrene that you have to put in the back of the unit to get it to sit flat. Um, that
Well, if it's like anything else, now I can't speak to the SDL 39 because I have no interest in that, so it saved me quite a bit of money, thankfully.
yeah, no kidding.
I can tell you, I know there's a lot of places that if the coupler covers and the coupler box are not fine tuned, when you slide it into that draft gear opening, it will actually pull that walkway down just because of the way everything's. I mean, if you really look at most of the engines today, I tell my Katos do it. My most of my Atherns, Genesis, all of them do it. So just if you really start to study a lot of pieces, a lot of them will do that. What are you doing, buddy?
So how would you go about fixing that?
Well, I've done it by slightly filing the coupler boxes.
Okay.
That's helpful. It just you've got to kind of fit and finish it, but a lot of times just simply filing the coupler boxes will do it. It just depends on how much of a difference there is. And the other thing too is that if the shell's not fitting dead flat like it's supposed to, the coupler boxes will actually pull those walkways down as well. So it all depends on what you got going on. So,
Okay.
but I know some people, oh my God, instead of actually looking and investigating, probably most of the stuff that's wrong out of the box is quickly fixable. But in the age of the internet, social media that's done great things for the hobby as well as done some dumb things for the hobby. everybody wants to get on there and start complaining instead of actually looking at what the problem is. So that's just my take on it. So.
Nope, I agree with you. We talked about that a little bit on the last episode in our gripe session, which was how spoiled, we've become, obviously, with all these detail parts and the level of detail out of the box, and you still have all these complaints. And I'm just like, man, a lot of these guys would not have survived, in just the blue box days. They would not have been able to make it.
Well,
No, they would have lost their mind, because
it's funny you
back in the
mentioned.
blue box stage, because Jason, Terrence, you had to work for what you wanted back then.
Yeah.
And they would slap. It didn't matter whether you take a GP40-2 and they put every road that ever hit the rails on it, whether it had one or not,
Cookie
and
cutter.
they cookie cuttered everything back then. But I think almost every manufacturer did back then.
Oh yeah.
Back in the 80s and early 90s.
It was the most
Broadway was
cost-effective
actually the
approach
last
that made
company
them
to do
money.
that. Or to continue that all the way up until the late 2000s.
Actually,
Yeah.
Actually, no. If you look at it, Broadway Limited still does that now today.
Although they are getting better.
With their Well, no. If you look where the with they're starting to do some of the fantasy schemes that they've done with Milwaukee Road 261. They did with that, and what else did they do some with? With the Blue Goose that's coming out, with the Santa Fe Blue Goose that's coming out.
Yeah, but I mean, those are more fantasy schemes and more of more kind of a knick-knack for people to buy. They did do it with their SD40-2s though, where they just put a bunch of railroads on one locomotive on just a standard car. And I mean, they didn't get the chassis details right. They didn't get UP details right. It was based off of a BN SD40. So
yeah, they just did them basic generic details and be done with it.
Mm-hmm. Now we do have someone that just jumped in. Tim.
I know.
Yes.
The lighting is bad, but I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, you got your standard blue box. It's just dummy because we've got piles of blue boxes down here. I mean, but you've got companies that are legitimately going above and beyond and just like doing individual specific road name, even road number details nowadays. And, now personally, BLI, I think BLI should stick to steam engines. I have a couple of their locomotives and they've made about one trip around the layout. Can't stand them. But that's just me. But the cookie cutter, I think the reality is the cookie cutterness. I think the hobby still supports it. It always will, because you've got guys like myself and you guys that are okay, is that plow right? Is that horn right? Are the MU connections appropriate for that? But then you've got other folks that are like, okay, cool, I like Southern, even though that's on a low hood GP38. It says Southern. I like Southern, so I'm going to buy it. I think that that's why those companies are still successful in doing that, because I look at things much differently. But I think that a lot of us that have been in the hobby a long time forget that there's a considerable amount of people that are just happy to watch trains run around a layout, and they don't care about the prototypical stuff on it. So, it is what it is, I guess, in the grand scheme of things.
I'm one of those guys.
Well, go ahead, speak your mind, Tim.
Yeah. Hey, I bought that Union Pacific FP59i. I like it. I don't like the Econami in it, but I like it. It's pretty neat. It looks good in front of some passenger cars.
That's all that matters. Is what matters the most is you get what you're looking for out of it. And like Jason mentioned, you just have an entire other side of the market. You have as a gamer too, I see it in games too. You have people that are good with the vanilla content, and you have people like myself that want every highly detailed, realistic third-party DLC you can get. That gets expensive too. But no, I enjoy the hobby just because of the challenge that it brings. Really, that and the people you meet along the way. Um, I thought I was the only one. Then I met Jason. Fire trucks and trains, man. Two favorite things in the world.
Yeah, trains are what should be occupied right now. I mentioned they can't run fire trucks, so it's trains right now. So, want to show them?
Come on,
So
Evan.
Evan's walking up to me. I've gotten him. I've been working with him on like custom painting stuff. So, Evan, sure.
Come on, Evan. Let's see it.
So he's working. He's obviously masking. He's all into CSX now. So he's is YN3 or whatever. Is that a 3? No. So he's
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
3.
old. He's actually doing really, really, really well. So
I was
Very
going to
good.
say that paint job looks better than my first 10 did.
I know Tim is our resident tsunami expert, and I know a bunch of us in here like ESU.
Yeah, that's all right.
Tsunami.
don't feel bad. I'm still straight DC. There's no DC in this.
There we go. I like that.
In 5, everybody's like, "Oh, you should switch." I'm like, "Cool. I would need another full-time job to cover the 500 locomotives that we have."
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt. I just picked up a SD60M Triclops Athearn Genesis 2.0 off of one of the Facebook groups from a guy, and it's well under MSRP. He claims that it had the truck issue fixed. Opened it up and looked at this. It does have it fixed, so I'm really surprised he let it go for what he did. But yeah, you're taking essentially the cost of what I paid for it and putting that exact same cost equally into a Tsunami to put in there. Yeah, the guys say, the ESUs are cheaper. I don't like the sound quality. I don't like the way it makes the locomotive run. But there are some things like the new Scale Trains museum quality big blow turbine that I just got. That's one I don't want to tackle with changing. It runs fine out of the box. I'm not going to mess with it. And, I don't have a layout to run it on to begin with. So it's just going to sit in the box and look pretty until I get my layout,
Did you get that fan issue sorted out on that?
I'm going to be honest. I had yesterday off as my only day off this last week, and I've been packing to move. So I have not opened it up. I talked to Mark at Scale Trains customer service and technical support. Really smart guy, really nice. He took it on really good authority from the local hobby shop that I'm capable of opening it and fixing it myself. He thinks it's just a dry bearing from shipping, whatever little bit of oil they put on it coming from China just dried out because it sat in the container so long. So haven't had a chance to look at it, but I'm going to crack that open here probably tomorrow when I have another day off and see what we got going on with it.
Well, that'll be a fun little project. Should definitely get a video of that to see if because I know I have mine and my fan doesn't spin at all. So
yeah, well, I got it out on the table here right now with the 60M I just picked up. So, and like you guys were alluding to earlier, sorry about that horrible blinding light there. The quality and details on these, even you guys keep referencing the blue box era. Even the yellow box Genesis, these are, leaps and bounds above that. And the Genesis yellow boxes were a step above the blue box. And that was, the big change, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the hobby's definitely evolving, that's for sure. I mean, it's crazy because when I first started, and this goes back obviously many, many years now, but when I first started, the blue box stuff that everybody, the blue box and the Atlas Roco yellow boxes, model die casting, and I mean that was really at that point that was the top of the food chain, unless you could afford brass. And now we have gone from that. Then you had Atlas Cato. Then Cato kind of split off and did their stuff, and now so much more stuff is available now than I would have ever dreamed of when I was Evan's age. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it legitimately is crazy. And people will still find something to complain about. But it is what it is, So
You're right about that, Jason. When you and I were Evan's age, there you had just those few manufacturers. There's tons more manufacturers now than what we had. And the only thing to add to that was like Lifelike and Tyco
yeah,
back then, and that was it.
Hmm.
yeah.
And yet, some people, old men, say the hobby is dying.
Well, it's kind of like the car scene. It's all the people that have been in it for so long, not taking new people under their wing and helping. That's why I say it's dying.
Well, I'll be honest, and I think we'll probably all agree here. So, as a car guy, train guy, the whole nine. I remember in my young car days, actual forums before Facebook. We're talking like before MySpace.
Oh yeah.
And the environment in forums was so different. It is so different than it is now with even the Facebook groups. I remember a particular instance. Jason will probably even remember it. David probably will too. There was a young boy who did, I think, his very first Norfolk Southern repaint. He did it on a GP30 just because he wanted to try something. Obviously, it was not the most aesthetically pleasing thing to look at, but you know what? He took the effort and he did it, and he showed a willingness to want to. He showed an initiative, and to me, it's nowadays on social media, it's so much easier to ridicule somebody for something than it is to say, "Hey, here, let me help you. Let me point you in the right direction to get you the tools and resources that you need to grow, because it is the people, the younger people, who at first they may not know what they're doing, but with enough guidance that can be a very influential person in the hobby. And we miss a lot of those because of the way that people communicate nowadays. So it's a very tough line to draw, because we face the same problem in the import drag racing community. It's the classes are getting smaller, the parts are getting more expensive, more people are making the parts, but the participation is dwindling. It's because the old heads, the OGs, they're getting to the point where they can't do it anymore. They can't invest all their time and money into it anymore. They have other things that they have to do. And then, the young people who want to get involved, it's so freaking expensive that it's hard for them at an entry level income to get involved. So it's trying to bring everything down. Now we have options as far as manufacturers go for cost. We just talked about, yeah, I do. There's a Minuteman Mini Mall down the street. You can go in there and pick up boxes of Tyco at like $2 a piece for rail cars. You can go pick up blue box locomotives for like $30. There's all sorts of ways to get into the hobby, but
Mhm.
people complain too much now that we've gotten the silver spoon, if you will. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's definitely affecting the world as a whole, especially the hobby. Many of them.
Well, and it's like anything else, though. I don't necessarily believe that the hobby is dying. I think, and the reason I don't think the hobby's dying is because you got scale trains and you got all this other stuff, and Athearn and scale trains, and I mean just Exact Rail and Atlas. They're continually producing these items, so clearly they're getting a financial return on these investments. So
Mhm.
they're not going to continue to do that unless they are selling the items that they are producing. So some will say that the hobby is dying. I disagree. I think it has migrated with the loss of the brick and mortar hobby shops and the face-to-face time that the guys would get with each other at clubs and hobby shops and everywhere else is non-existent. But if you look at some of these social media groups, like my Norfolk Southern modeling group, for instance, that's got 5,000 members. The HO Scale modeling group, which most of us are probably on, which was one of the first, generic Facebook groups that were. I mean, I think that's got 45,000.
Yeah,
Members.
it's some astronomical amount on it, something like that.
It's a big,
So,
big, big base.
I think that people can say that the hobby's dying. I think that it's changing. It's not the same. And to go back, Terrence, what you said, about the old heads, nothing makes me more irritated when old guys refuse to help younger folks, and I've never understood that because I'm like, ultimately we're all playing with toys. We can say they're models, but in the end of the day, they're just expensive toys. Why in the world do people feel compelled to withhold information to help other people? I just like at the end of the day, what do you get out of not helping somebody? It's not. I just don't get it sometimes. So but
I've never been able to compute. I've never been able to compute that because like when I really got started seriously, probably, oh Lord, I can't. I'm gonna say probably about 10 years ago. I wouldn't have done. I could. I never even thought about doing half the stuff that I can do now. Most of which I learned a lot. I learned from you, Jason. That the but like super detailing now. I never would have done that years ago. I would have pulled it out of the box, put some KD couplers on it, and sent it on its way. Now everything's got to be,
it,
you know, exact the way it should be.
yeah, and your skill sets evolve. That's why I'm at NS group. Like anytime I'm doing something, like I don't withhold it. Like I always, I'll throw up little things here and there because people just may not know any better. It's just like I got into an argument a couple days ago with somebody about using brake fluid as a stripper. That worked years ago, but
Yeah.
these guys were like, "Well, it worked for me for 40." I'm like, "Yeah, but the plastics today are finer than what you brake just scale coat 91%. That like literally you want to talk about pet peeves. Not to segue here, but when we'll get back on track here. When you have old guys like brake fluid's the only way to go. I'm like, yeah, but it permeates the plastic, and I don't care how much you clean it, it will eventually lead to failure of the shell. It does not matter. Like, so I don't know. It's just, let's get back on track because I could go on about that for hours on end.
So kind of going back to the whole price thing, I was at a kind of an old resale brick and mortar hobby shop here in town in St. Louis. It's called Train Town. And they get high end. They mainly deal with O scale Lionel, O scale Lionel Legacy and stuff like that. But occasionally they do get bundles of HO in there. I recently found a bunch of Genesis yellow box cars, high cubes, for $20 a piece.
It's a steal.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I buy them all.
Genesis for $20. I'm like,
See, it's
and
funny
then
because the
and then I see the price tag. Originally, it was like $24.98 for Genesis. Whenever these came out, it's like, wow. Because now it
sometimes,
probably
man,
is what, almost 45, $50.
Easily.
Yeah, usually.
depending on the road and the number and all that, yeah.
That's KCS.
I had the I've had the same experiences here at the Mini Mall here in Culpeper. They have a whole section. It's basically your old antique flea market kind of deal. And the twist is they have an entire section dedicated to the trains. And the guy that works in there, his name is Eric. He's a real nice guy. He specializes in O gauge and HO, and he's got old school Lionel in there. He's got MTH Rail King. He's got Athearn Genesis. He's got a lot of Athearn Genesis thanks to me. I've sold him quite a bit of stuff that I just didn't use anymore. He's got quite a few things, and I've walked in there and I grabbed I can't remember what it was. I've bought so much stuff from there. I grabbed a blue box GP. It was a GP60 shell passed off as a GP59. We already know the deal. Southern 4610 for like $20. Ran great. I picked it up, and so now it too is on my workbench, and I just got to go on Canon and Co. get some stuff for it. But I've gotten some really dumb steals from there.
Where does he get that stuff from? It's been a while since I've been down there, but does he? I mean, does he go online and get find stuff, or because I've never understood what his tie-in with the hobby is.
So a lot of it is He's much like my late grandfather. My biological grandfather. He was around for the era of the internet, but he was very much just he had old buddies, kind of like us, as old buddies that he's known throughout the hobby for years and years, and off and on they've retired their layouts due to either health problems or just downsizing, whatever the case may be. And he's picked up a lot of their stuff. I know that he's bought some stuff from me too. A lot of the Lionel that's in there is mine, and I sold my Lionel that I inherited because I'm not ever going to use it. I don't have the space for O gauge. It's not my. So I just didn't want it to sit in the box. I figured I'd sell it to him. He could sell it to somebody else that would use it, and enjoy it. But he gets his stuff a little bit everywhere. Probably a little bit online too. But he's pretty easy to deal with. Right now, he's got a lot of Pennsylvania Railroad stuff. So if anybody needs Pensy stuff, let me know. He's literally got a whole layout worth of locomotives. He's got Alcos, he's got EMDs, like Jeep 9s, SD9s, whatever the heck you need in Pennsy, he's got it.
Hmm.
He's even got like 5 or 6 doodlebugs.
Is he
So-
is affordable prices? Because it's been, like I said, it's been a while since I've been down there.
It depends on what he bought it for. He tends to price everything pretty fair, but he also his prices can be a little steep because he tends to give the seller as close to top as he can. But like right now, he's got one of my SD70 standard cabs in there, and right now he's asking 250 for it, but that's because it's weathered and has DCC sound, the whole nines. It hasn't sold yet, but I will tell you that probably 5 or 6 of my Lionel locomotives, the week that they got brought in, I came in a week later and they were all gone. So, I mean, he stays moving stuff. His prices aren't terrible. It's just it depends on what he paid for it. If he got it cheap, then you'll be able to get it for cheap. If he paid nicely for it, you'll pay nicely for it. It's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, I mean, Tim used to work at a brick and mortar, right?
I don't want to throw them under the bus. Under the table, yes. I helped them get caught up on some installs doing DCC. So I still go there weekly. I love it. I was there yesterday.
No, that's not Midwest, is it?
No.
Okay.
I'll keep my opinions to myself, but they're not getting any more money from me. I can tell you that. I had a really off-putting experience. I'll let everybody else form their own opinion of that company.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of hobby shops that have online purchasing now, and I mean, I love hate it. I love it
It is
because
what
it's
it is.
easy. I hate it because I spend all my money.
At least when you order from Lombard, they give you the fruit snacks, so it's less of a thing, Oh man, my trains are here.
Yeah.
Man, that was a lot of money. Oh, there's fruit snacks. This is great.
That's kind of how I felt.
Scale Train gives you candy with the running gag with Scale Trains now is you buy candy from them and it comes with a free locomotive.
Well, that's just like my STL39. When I got it, it came with like 2 Scale Train stickers and a pin, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Man, all I got was a magnet. I feel gypped on my purchase here.
I got a
Well,
magnet
Look
with
here,
my
I got it
trainers.
for you.
I don't know.
Actually have it.
They've
know
got
how
an
far back-
abundance of swag left over from the road trip.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how far back some of you all go, but back in the days when Model Railroader was really big and that's where all their advertising, you had several shops that had multi-page advertisements.
Train World was one of them.
Yeah,
Train World, I was about to say, I've had many phone calls with them.
And they're starting to get a bad rep. I don't really deal with them, but I've seen a lot of negativity coming out, but that's neither here nor there right now. But yeah, I've seen a lot of bad reviews, I guess. But it used to be many, many years ago, you would send a check with your order, and it was their choice of road name. Like, you picked the car that you wanted, but they sent you whatever road name that they wanted to send you.
I remember that.
That
And it was like, and if you did it, it was like dirt cheap too.
Yeah. Yep.
Like half of what you would have paid if you'd have, and sometimes these were locomotives and stuff too
Yeah.
that you could get like half of what like you're getting a blue box SD40-2 and you send them $25 and they send you whatever they want to send you.
Yeah.
Or if you ordered it from the same shop. I don't even remember what shop that is now, but yeah, you get the same locomotive, but if you picked it, you're paying full price for it.
Yeah. Just crazy.
It reminds me of loot boxes on some of the games. It's like, oh, you give us this amount of money and we'll give you everything from a sock all the way on out to a gold nugget. But what you get is what you get. You can't complain about it.
It's crazy nowadays. But yeah, a lot of things have changed. That's for sure.
Yes,
Can we
indeed.
can we backtrack to hobby stores for a second?
Go
Sure.
for it.
So here in the Kansas City metro, they've had 3 of the brick and mortar stores close, completely out of business, nothing to do. So there's Midwest. Midwest is left out in is that Liberty or Independence? Then you
That'll
got
be something.
Show Me Model Railroads down in Grandview. They're really good. And then just around the corner for me in Shawnee, or no, I guess he's in Overland Park, is Fred's Train Store. And they're all pretty competitive with each other price wise, product wise. You know, Fred's does O gauge and G scale, N scale. He's got weird Markland stuff. You know, Show Me Lines is only HONN. And you know, I keep going back to Show Me Lines versus the other guys just because the customer service you get, you know, and I think it's really weird. But I've also done online shops like Lombard. They're great. I love them. Their customer service is spot on. And I don't know if any of you guys have had experience with, there's a company up in Canada, Pacific Western Rail Systems, I think is what it is, PWRS.
I've heard of it.
They're great. They're great. My only complaint is I have to call the bank and tell them, hey, there's a company in Canada going to run my card, so don't block it. This is how much they're running it for, you know. Then they got to wait, you know, 2 hours, and then they have like a 3-hour window to run it before they close it off again. But their customer service is great too, you know. And I think people will say it's the cost of the hobby going up, which is putting brick and mortar stores out of business. But I will say 100% without a doubt, it's not the cost. It's just the customer service you're getting. You know, one of the shops that closed down downtown, Doc's Caboose Shop, been there forever and a day. I went in and was in there for 40 minutes just poking around, and not once was asked by anybody, hey, do you need help finding anything? Hey, how are you today? Nothing. Able to walk in and walk out completely unassisted, you know, and it just kind of gives you the vibe of, okay, well, are they here to sell? Are they here to, you know, help the hobby? You know, what are they here for? And it was very off-putting, I thought, you know. And go to Midwest, they're on it, you know, but my experience there was very off-putting, and unfortunately they're not getting any of my money anymore. I have to find somewhere else. They have probably the nicest selection of detail parts you need, Details West, Details Associates, anything you need. I could drive across town and get it. I would rather order it online and wait. Just that is how off-putting my experience was with them.
That's pretty bad. So for hobby shops, you know, you would think everybody's like, oh, you live in the Washington, D.C. area. It must be great. There isn't squat for a decent hobby shop anywhere. You have to either go up to, well, it's not even a hobby shop. It used to be NB Klein's was the place, but they pretty much shut that down to mail order only. I am a huge impulse buyer. Like if I go to a hobby shop, I can guarantee you I'll walk in there looking for Katie couplers, and I will walk out looking, you know, with 17 boxes of stuff that I did not need, and now I'm looking for more shelf space. And I take that back. I completely forgot about it. There's a hobby shop just on the other side of the West Virginia line, on the western side of Washington D.C. It's about a 50-minute run from me. It's called it's called Loco Joe's, and they are actually for they get a lot of my money because I go to these hobby shops. Like I can go online. My problem is like I can go to a hobby shop and I can go to their wall of freight cars and I'll look. I'm like, oh man, new TTX or new NS or whatever the case may be. But when I go to, let's see, model train stuff or MB Kleins or Lombards or any of the other powerhouses, if you will, I get bored of scrolling through the new stuff looking for something that might interest me. So I go there for purpose-based buying, where if I walk into a hobby shop, I can guarantee you I am definitely walking out with a lot of more stuff than I intended on, when I walked in. So it's a mindset, I guess. So
It's like going to a train show. I can't not just go to a train show and not spend any money.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I think that's probably why my wife hates the hobby so much. She doesn't hate the hobby; she just hates the cost.
I've gone into a train show. I had $200 in my pocket in cash. I was not planning on buying anything. Bought a locomotive.
You sound like me. Sound like me. I walked into Tiny Tim's Toys and Trains in Ashland probably a year and a half ago, and I had 500, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pick up just some court bed, some track bed. Now I walked out of there with track bed, but I also walked out of there with two new Athearn 13K tankers. Walked out of there with a complete DCC system, some paint and airbrush.
Sometimes my only issue is that he is literally list MSRP and sometimes higher. Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah, that's why I don't buy many locos from him. He has the new Amtrak SC44s, and I was looking at them things, and I'm not, I don't typically model Amtrak, but I already know there's going to come a day that those are going to come through here. So I'm like, hey, I can get one. Nah, when I seen that he wanted $400 and some dollars, I was like, nah, dude, I can go get that cheaper online. I'm just not paying it here. No offense.
Yeah.
Just not
No,
doing it.
I'm cracking up at Evan. I'm cracking up at Evan just slightly out of frame, changing changing the workbench out. you see the finger just slightly peeking through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm quite proud of him. He's really getting to this whole custom paint thing. So
He's doing good at it too.
All I
But
can
see,
say
like
is
here in Jacksonville, we don't have any hobby shops at all. The
really?
closest hobby shops, and I should say Florida, not North Carolina, Texas, or anywhere like that. For those that are watching, the closest hobby shop to me is about 2.5 hours away south in Orlando. That is the closest hobby shop, and then there's one in equally about the same amount of time, about 2.5 hours in Ocala.
yeah,
So I've got to drive.
there's
And
Calusa, right, in Florida.
where?
The hobby shop's Calusa, isn't it? Calusa Hobbies.
I don't know. I've never heard of it.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a bunch of shops in Florida, but they're all south or west. There's nothing in the Jacksonville metro area where there used to be several very nice, well-stocked hobby shops that have all closed down for whatever reason over the years.
Hmm.
Jason, do you remember the hobby shop that used to be in Manassas Mall?
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called, but I figured you would remember it because they had an all right selection of stuff in there too.
That's faded. You got to kind of wonder, if it's, a lot of the old dudes that own these hobby shops, it's hard to keep up with. It's hard to keep up with these internet powerhouses, because these places, from all it takes, and I'll give a prime example. What right, wrong, or different? Main Model Works, Tim. I don't know the backstory, but I understand that the poor guy got in some pretty some life stuff, if you will. Got in the way, and how long? It didn't take long before the internet was destroying that poor dude.
Yes.
These people are the service now mentality. like, well, if I order something right now, I expect it at my door, 2 days from now. And, the brick and mortars, even from a internet sale, they can't keep up with that. So it's tough because, you've got, like, again, Lombard's and MB Klein and some of the other places. What is it? Spring Creek or Otter
Spring
Creek? There's
Creek
a couple of,
in Deschler, Nebraska. They
And
are
there's a Otter Creek. There's an
fantastic.
Otter Creek that's in Canada.
yeah. Those, I mean, they've got people literally that do nothing but deal with internet sales. It's tough.
Amazon.
Yeah. Boy.
And then like going back to what you said, Jason, about with Tim, there was he has Main Model Works is not
Correct.
his sole job. He has a very lucrative, profitable landscaping business too that he does, and so it's like he's entrusted these. Yes, Main Model Works is his baby, but he's entrusted other people to do stuff for him that were not doing, and he had no clue what was going on
Yeah.
until people started slaughtering him like out in the street over it all over social media, and then he's like, wait, what's going on here? And then where he's now stepped back in and
Yeah.
got everything back under control now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him a little bit. I had a bunch of pre-orders with him, and I just decided to say, hey, I'm just gonna get everything I have and cancel it until he's able to figure out what's going on, just so to cover my butt, and then it gets some stress off of him, and then. But he's a great dude because he would ship stuff. I mean, when he first started, as soon as it came in, it was out the door getting shipped.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the same way when I ordered I pre-ordered my 3 Pride and Service units, the Scale Trains Pride and CSX Pride and Service units from them, and
Evan's running
and
is right now. They're about ready to get pushed onto the workbench, just so you know.
and I'll have to sit. Well, if I know I can't because that would drive you crazy if I sent you the video of Jason, of my 911 and 3194. They've got custom sound files in them, and Evan would probably eat it up.
Yeah, don't do that, please.
So then, but anyway, I mean, I put them on layaway, paid them off, and like that's like the stuff that you used to could get from, as opposed to dropping $900 at one time. I paid on them a little bit because it was Christmas time when those come out. Who's got an extra $900 flying around at Christmas time?
Oh, that was a marketing thing. You know that just as well as I do.
Oh
so.
yeah, oh yeah.
Well, I'll be honest.
Those 3 are perfect.
Oh yeah, they are. Eric Hendrickson and Tyler Harden did an amazing job with those 3 locomotives, and they are literally. Then Eric went with Shane Wilson, and they did those locomotives, and they are when it says rivet counter, they are exactly in the those 3 locomotives are spot on, 100% accurate from coupler to coupler, from the top of the exhaust stack to the bottom of the fuel tank.
Mm-hmm. I did see someone saying that there was like an LED missing, but I think that had something to do with like a function, the fact that they couldn't get that function or something. I don't know.
It's got to be a function or something like that, because those 3 locomotives, I can attest to the accuracy of that was only because I personally know Tyler and Eric, that those 3 locomotives are 100% accurate, top to bottom, left to right.
Well, I've got a question on that. So, since you're talking about Mr. Knowing folks, I've heard a rumor that CSX actually has. I don't get involved with this, but I've got a very good friend who's in the know. Who's pretty wired into the real railroading business. Is there any truth to the fact that there is a chassis system heritage unit sitting in Huntington shops or somewhere? that has yet to be unveiled that's been sitting there because they don't want certain people to know that they actually painted. I know it sounds like a UFO story, but
It
and
was done.
I'm not talking about the B-23 or whatever it was that they painted, but I told it's like an ES-44 or something that is painted in chassis system that is just set that they refuse to release because
Not that I know of. I've kind of heard that same rumor, but
I know they had a CNO FD70 Ace running around a while.
Yeah, that was they lost their mind over that because somebody painted
that was actually graffiti.
Yeah.
It was actually a PRLX lease unit that was the old CSX Ace, and somebody graffitied it.
It looked
and
perfect.
graffitied it. It was actually done very, very well. But I know that there was actually, with the Pride and Service units, there was actually supposed to have been two more to that, along with a safety train, not just fire safety train, very similar to NS's, that was scrubbed. And there was artwork done for heritage units, and none of them will probably ever come to light, but it was done. The artwork was done for them.
Well, is that just
didn't pay the guy, right?
Do what?
CSX
What'd you say, Jay?
Didn't pay the artist, did they?
What I was told, no.
Well, I can tell you right now, if the current CEO and staff were in charge of NS or at the head of NS, then you can bet your bottom dollar that NS wouldn't have any heritage units right now.
Nope.
If it's the same folks that I don't know. Not to get on a tangent here, but I've seen people do some dumb shit to get photos of the heritage units. I'm like, man, they're cool and all, but some people do some dumb stuff just to get photos of them. So
speaking of dumb stuff that's been done, Southern 8099 is still sitting on a siding track up on NS territory, and the horn, the E-bell, and the number boards are all missing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm surprised. I made a joke on the that NS predecessors page run by Mike Ray. I'm surprised somebody hadn't gone up there and cut the hood doors off the side of it because it says Southern and put them up in their man cave or something. But apparently it has nothing to do with the fact that other than they're like, you know what, it'll sit there because we don't have any room for it at Altoona, so it'll just sit, and when we get it. So
this is NS's busy season. They're starting to phase in those 182-day maintenance cycles.
Yeah, so who knows? But I will say I'm surprised it sat there that long. But I mean, it is what it is.
And a lot of it too, NS, and I'm sure y'all all do too, have friends that work for the actual railroad, that a lot of these, just like any other place, they don't have crews to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's where PSR kind of bit NS in the ass. They shut down Roanoke shops for a minute, and then I think they shut Roanoke shops down entirely, or they planned on it.
Safers Crossing, the servicing for the valley in Roanoke is still very much alive. The massive Roanoke shops, they are all shut down. It's definitely interesting to look at. It's a ghost town because it used to be some pretty wild stuff going on because that's where all the NS Top Guns were built, like that. But it's all downsizing, and
they shut down Chattanooga too, right at the time. Or is it back up and running? I know the Chattanooga was shut down too for a while. I don't know if it brought it back up.
I don't know what the status is. Once you start getting out of the once you get out of Virginia, I start to lose track of what's going on because it seems like every day, the yard's getting shut down or this or that or whatever the case may be. So
it's weird and it's crazy. I think about it kind of go off topic of the models here and take a step into the real world for a second, talking about PSR and all. I find it weird, because I mean, hell, Jason's lived in the area for a while, and I've lived along the Beeline in Washington District my entire life. Seeing the transition over the past 20 years, you've got trains that are 3 times as long as they used to be, less locomotives, and they're still downsizing and cutting crews back. And I'm just, but the thing that's crazy is the volume is still there. I was out rail fanning what 2 3 nights ago, and in a matter of 2 hours, I had a 227, a 204, a 211, and a 12R. It's just like, okay, well, the volume's there. So
It runs in spurts,
That's
though, man. It does run in spurts because it depends on. I mean, you can go hours and hours, but 227 is hauling freight because it's just 227 for us is a international stack train, 40-foot containers that comes out of Norfolk and then goes. I don't really get into the weeds about where everything comes from goes. I just like to watch trains. But it's definitely changed. I mean, they're running stack trains through our area that are so big that they don't fit on any of the sidings anywhere that have been built. So they have to wait till they come down to the old Norfolk, to the old Southern Washington, Atlanta, Georgia main, just to get to double track sections so they can pass stuff because they're running 16,000 foot long stacks. It's unheard of. So
yeah, I remember there was a 200 series train. I can't remember which one. I had it on video, but it had 3 up front and 2 mid DPUs, and it had to have been pushing 12,000 feet.
yeah, it's
It was
crazy.
massive.
It's crazy.
By the way,
There's
speaking of,
that went by my work on Tuesday was 18,000 feet.
that's a
Wait,
lot of train. Could
18,000
you imagine
feet?
being a conductor on that and having to run around it?
It sucked. So on Tuesday night at work, so I work a third-party contractor for the Kansas City Southern. We're a switch crew at their International Freight Gateway facility in Belton, Missouri. And we had a train that ended up being 2 days late because of that stupid UP train that went through. It was supposed to be there on Tuesday. It didn't end up showing up till Thursday just because of all the stuff they had to jam into sidings to clear for that UP to go through on their track.
Crazy.
That was just like
was that UP
that's
coming
like the
out
freight.
of St. Louis, or was that the UP coming out of St. Louis, or was that going?
It was coming out of St. Louis going south. So
Oh shit!
That's like the CSX traffic down here on the A line that come from running from Richmond down here to Jacksonville, coming through Folkestone, Georgia. If you don't know, that's the Folkestone funnel where then they hunt us up, and what is the other one? I can't remember. Both of them converge together right there in Folkestone, and every train now, every train northbound in and out of Florida has to go pass through there, which back in the day, 90s and early 2000s, was close to 80, 90 trains a day. Now you're lucky if you get 20.
well, it goes back to that downsizing thing too.
Exactly. And of those 20 trains, they're probably 13, 14, 15,000 foot long, couple up front, mid-train DPU, and one pushing on the rear. And we're talking trains in Florida where it's not virtually flat, but there are some good grades down here, but you got DPUs on intermodal trains.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you,
there's a guy, Evan, what's that guy's name? There's a dude that he does some really, really good CSX videos from Florida. I don't know if you know him or not.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Worldwide of Trains, right?
Yeah, is it? No,
is that what it's called?
Distant Signal Productions. He's
Distant Signal.
Yeah.
Distant Signal.
Yeah. Distant Signal. Distant Signal is the channel, and Danny Harmon's the guy that does it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't really get into YouTube too much, but I could sit. I mean, he does really, really, really good stuff. So, anyway.
So to tie all this into model railroading, because obviously we're a model railroading channel, how would one go about mastering PSR on a layout they've already built that is technically before PSR started?
physics. You're going to have to really examine physics because I'm going to tell you now that if we think string lining derailments in the real world are bad, they very much do exist in the hobby, as we obviously all know.
Well, we're not all like
Don't
NS.
put
We're like
center beams
incompetent
mid
trainers.
train. Don't put in empty center beams mid train. You should be okay.
Yeah, I was
For,
gonna say we're not all as incompetent as NS.
for starters, make sure that you run with metal couplers. Because I can tell you, plastic couplers are junk. It's the worst thing that anybody I run. I mean, I say Evan runs, 35, 45 car freight trains on a layout, no big deal. And if there is anything in there that has plastic couplers near the head end, it will pull apart. I mean, they're great probably for small switching layouts or layouts that are, you don't really, that have relatively short consists. But I mean, when you start talking 30, 25, 30 cars as a grade, yeah, that's why most of the cars I try to replace every set of, every time the car comes in with plastic couplers, I try to replace it, but sometimes one or two slip through the crack, and once you start running long trains, you'll figure out which one slipped through the crack, got through the crack
real quick.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean the McHenrys aren't terrible. I mean they still at least hold on to a KD into a KD just fine. The problem is when you have a bunch of plastic couplers hooked up back to back to back, then it becomes a problem. And I mean, I want to say I think it's Athearn and Atlas are the only ones that still use plastic couplers.
Yeah, and Atlas does that, and I think
Actually,
Atlas does that split coupler thing still, don't they? That
some things they do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
whole it's really weird.
Bachman had a version of
Bring
that as
back
well.
keyboard
It was trash.
Make model railroading great again.
Scale trains, and now, yes, mind you, it is a scale coupler, but scale trains uses a plastic coupler.
Yeah, I wish they changed that.
Well, I mean, the problem is it holds.
It does.
Yes, it does hold. Yes, it does hold, and it matches up to a KD number 5 perfectly fine because I run my scale trains unit behind my 65 car Tropicana juice train just fine, and it pulls them right up the helix at the club. It walks them into ES44s, walk it right up the grade like they're not even back there.
But
and I think what your layout is and what's your ruling grade and all, like the ruling grade on this layout isn't bad, but you start, some of the custom cars I built get pretty heavy because I, with the loads and whatnot that I have in them. And if you got a plastic coupler, and again, that is my personal take on it. Somebody that has a smaller layout is only running, 10 or 15 car trains. Plastic couplers can be perfectly fine all day long. But once, when you start talking about PSR, where that means lengthening your train length in conjunction with the prototype, blah, 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 But most layouts, I mean, especially home layouts, we already have to compress what we want to model as it is in selective comprehension or selective compression, if you want to call it that. So it just is what it is. You just kind of go with the flow. So
another step to implementing PSR in your layout is if you're running DCC sound, like I know Mitch is, you're going to have to consist some locos together. So that way you have an equal amount of push pull. Now, I would love to. It's actually a great question because I'd love to see it played out on like a club. I honestly wish we had a club with a DCC layout like nearby because I'd love to test it out. Put like 60 cars up and evenly disperse, units throughout. But the only problem is, this is something I learned on the railroad, that with DPUs there's a method called fencing, and it confuses a lot of people. Have you ever had a train go past and the front units, they're not making a whole lot of noise, but the rear, man, they're screaming in notch 8, and you're like, what in the world? Well, that's partially fencing. It's controlling the amount of train that's ascending a grade and descending a grade, and where the crest is. You want to. It goes into a whole slew of things we won't go into, but I would love to see like a realistic PSR operation implemented into model railroading. But it would be very challenging to do without constant derailments. It sounds simple, but you got to remember that just because we're dealing with models, we're not exempt from physics. The same physics of a real train still, to an extent, apply. You know, there's going to be shove force, pull force. There's going to be all of those different forces. So
Run PSR every day on my layout when I'm at it. It's nose to tail. Every car I can fit on the table, 4x8.
And with that turbine, I'm sure it's going to be even trickier.
Dude, you know what? I have my little Athearn Genesis veranda. I have a video on my Facebook from like 3 or 4 years ago, and literally every car I owned at the time, passenger, freight, everything, I threw behind that thing with the tender, and it was like maybe a half a car distance between the nose and the tail, and it was awesome. And I was like, man, this thing's a great puller. It pulls everything I got. It was awesome.
Yeah, and that scale train's turbine, I think, will pull about 80 to 90 cars on a flat layout by itself, which is just insane.
that is a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Broadway. They, when they made their AC 6000s, bricks is what they were.
That's just like the SDP, man. That thing is unbelievably heavy. I know David knows what I'm talking about. I can't get over
Yeah,
how heavy that freaking thing is.
I took it to the club one day, and I had 12 superliners behind it. It's single by itself with 12 Walther superliners, and like they weren't even back there. They weren't even they weren't even there. It didn't even phase it.
Yeah, what I do like about Genesis 2.0 is the weight is finally coming into play.
Yes.
They're finally
Well,
putting weight in the motors.
they have to keep up. They have to compete with scale trains now.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because scale trains can pull scale trains locomotive, especially. I mean, all I can say is the ES44s because that's all I've got. I've got 5 of them, but they can pull down a brick wall.
Yeah.
Their tractive effort is unbelievable.
Mhm.
And you know what though, and one of the things that I know, like for me, a lot of people like, well, I so and so is lighter, so and so is heavy. But if you really get down to brass tacks from a real railroading perspective, all of our trains, more or less, are overpowered for the, like. You could throw 3 or 4 to, I mean, obviously selective compression, 3 or 4 -8s, -9s, just for the huge, whatever the case may be. And to us, on that 35 or 45 car train, it looks pretty decent because it's scaled down. But in real world, you'd have one, or you'd have 2 SD4-2s or 2 -9s, if that makes sense. So the weight for me is not really that much of a play. Now, I will tell you, scale trains remind me of the P2K. I don't know how many of you all have them.
Yes, Proto
But
2000.
those SDs, well, I mean, I thought that they would spread the rails because those things were, well, and still are, super heavy. I mean, it's crazy. But the weight, and I'll tell you right now, one of the things that I learned is that if you have any track problems as far as connectivity issues, or if there's a scale train's GVO or -9, we'll find it because it weighs so much that it's actually, I found a couple of weak joints in some of the backside of the layout that I've actually had to tighten because the weight is so much when it goes across the track joints, it actually causes an electrical break in between the rails. So it's actually pretty funny. So that's all been fixed. So
Oh, good. Oh, man. So,
yep.
we've been recorded for about an hour 30 or so.
Wow.
Sounds about right. The typical Misfit hour and a half.
Yeah, typical Misfit hour and a half, 45 minutes.
Whatever
man.
it is. I'm still gonna
Some shit like that.
Yeah.
But
all right,
great,
fellas,
because
I've got to hop off. Matter of fact, I got flapping my gums, and I didn't even realize how long we've been in here. But I've got to take care of some stuff this afternoon, so I think I'm going to hop off here for the day. So,
all right. Well,
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jason.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks for coming, Jason.
Call me anytime.
All right,
guys.
That's it.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I'm about to have to do the same, y'all.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do the same too. I've got to take my son to go get his haircut here shortly.
All right. Well, I'm
Next
gonna
go
get
round, I'll
a
have
send
some.
off. We'll do a send off here. We'll do the outro. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this hour and a half long video of us just griping about trains and whatnot and everything going on that's, in the model railroad community. So hope you all enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure and share. All right.